Captain Elena Vasquez pressed a palm against the cold viewport of the research vessel Meridian, watching stars bend into streaks as they dropped out of hyperspace. The transition always made her stomach lurch, but this time felt different. Wrong. Somehow. Coordinates confirmed. Captain called out Navigator Chen from his station. We're exactly where the signal originated, but I'm not reading anything on long-range sensors. Elena turned back to the bridge, studying the faces of her 12-person crew. They'd been chasing this ghost signal for 3 weeks, following a transmission that shouldn't exist. The data packet contained stellar coordinates in ancient Earth format, a numbering system that hadn't been used for over 2 centuries. More disturbing, the signal carried authentication codes that predated the establishment of the Colonial Space Administration by 50 years. Dr. Reeves, what's your analysis? Elena asked the expedition's xenoarchaeologist. The older woman looked up from her tablet, exhaustion evident in her weathered features. The transmission pattern is definitely human in origin, but the technology's signature is unlike anything in our databases. If I didn't know better, I'd say this signal has been broadcasting continuously for at least 75 years. That's impossible, interrupted Communications Officer Park. The first human ships didn't reach this sector until 40 years ago, and we've mapped every derelict and station out here. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She commanded deep space missions for 15 years, but this expedition was different. The ghost signal had appeared during a routine survey mission, cutting through subspace static with mechanical precision. It repeated the same message every 6 hours, coordinates, authentication codes, and a single phrase in archaic military notation. Perimeter 1, standing by. Take us closer to the source coordinates, Elena ordered. Full sensor sweep, active and passive. The Meridian moved forward through the debris field that surrounded this region of space. Ancient asteroid impacts had created a maze of metallic fragments and ice, perfect cover for something that didn't want to be found. Tactical Officer Rodriguez suddenly straightened at his console. Captain, I've got something massive on gravitational sensors. Whatever it is, it's hiding in the shadow of that large asteroid, approximately 15 kilometers ahead. Elena moved to stand behind Rodriguez's shoulder. The gravitational signature was enormous, easily 10 times the mass of a research vessel. Can you get a visual? Trying now. Rodriguez's fingers danced across his controls, switching to enhance imaging. The main view screen flickered, then resolved into an image that made everyone on the bridge fall silent. Nestled against the dark side of the asteroid was a ship unlike anything in the modern fleet. It was massive, easily 800 meters long, with a brutal, angular design that spoke of war. Gun batteries lined its hull like metallic teeth, and armor plating covered every surface in overlapping layers. My God, whispered Dr. Reeves. Look at the design principles. Those hull modifications, the weapons placement. This is pre-colonial war technology, but far more advanced than anything from that era. Elena studied the vessel through the view screen. No light showed along its hull. No energy signatures indicated active systems. It looked dead, a ghost ship floating in the eternal darkness between stars. Yet somehow, that ancient signal was still broadcasting from within its hull. Life support readings. Elena asked. Negative on biological activity, reported Medical Officer Santos. But I'm detecting low-level power generation. Something's still functioning inside that thing. The ghost ship's design was clearly human, but wrong in ways Elena couldn't articulate. The proportions were too aggressive, the weapon systems too numerous. Modern human warships were built for exploration and defense. This vessel looked like it had been designed for one purpose only, to kill. Captain, Chen called out, his voice tight with worry. I'm reading movement. The ghost ship is changing position. Elena spun to face the view screen. The massive vessel was indeed moving, rotating slowly to face the Meridian. Ancient systems that had slept for decades were awakening. Running lights began to flicker along its hull, and weapon batteries that had been dormant started to track their position. Shields up, Elena ordered. All stop. Do not make any aggressive moves. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of electronics and the distant whisper of life support. On the view screen, the ghost ship completed its rotation, its weapon systems now aimed directly at them. Elena realized with growing horror that they hadn't found an abandoned derelict. They'd found something that had been waiting. A new signal began broadcasting from the ghost ship, cutting through their communications array with startling clarity. The voice that emerged from their speakers was human, but distorted by decades of digital degradation. Unknown vessel, identify yourself immediately. This is a UES Retribution, Earth Defense Force, Perimeter 1. State your purpose in restricted space. Elena exchanged glances with her crew. The Earth Defense Force had been dissolved over 60 years ago, and no ship named Retribution existed in any historical record she knew of. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the Research Vessel Meridian, Colonial Space Administration Registry, she replied carefully. We received your signal and came to investigate. The response came after a long pause, filled with a crackle of ancient electronics processing information. Registry not recognized. Colonial Space Administration not found in database. Scanning vessel configuration. Another pause. Design pattern consistent with human origin, but unknown class. Captain Vasquez, state current Earth date and your mission parameters. Elena felt her mouth go dry. Whatever was speaking to them from that ghost ship genuinely didn't know about the Colonial Space Administration, didn't recognize modern human ship designs. It was as if time had stopped for the Retribution decades ago. Current date is March 15th, 2387, Elena replied. We're on a routine research mission. The silence that followed stretched for nearly a full minute. When the voice returned, it carried a weight of terrible realization. 2387, 63 years since last contact with Earth Command. 63 years of patrol duty completed. The voice paused, and Elena could swear she heard something like relief mixed with ancient rage. Captain Vasquez, this is Colonel Marcus Webb, commanding officer of the UES Retribution. I have been waiting a very long time for new orders. Elena stared at the view screen, her mind racing. Colonel Marcus Webb. She'd never heard the name, but something about it felt familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare from history class. The Retribution hung before them, its weapon system still tracking their every movement with mechanical precision. Colonel Webb, Elena said carefully, Earth Command was dissolved over 60 years ago. The Earth Defense Force was disbanded after the Colonial Independence Accords. What exactly are your current mission parameters? The response carried an edge of suspicion. Captain Vasquez, you will understand that operational security prevents me from discussing classified missions with unknown vessels. However, given the unusual circumstances, I am willing to grant you permission to come aboard. Your ship will remain under surveillance. Any hostile action will result in immediate termination. Elena looked at her crew. Dr. Reeves was frantically scrolling through historical databases on her tablet. Rodriguez had his finger hovering over the weapons console, though Elena knew their research vessel's defensive systems would be useless against the monster facing them. Santos was monitoring their biological readings, watching for any signs of deception or artificial intelligence. Captain, Dr. Reeves whispered urgently, I found something. There are fragmentary records of a Colonel Marcus Webb in the pre-colonial archives. He was part of something called Project Perimeter, a classified Earth Defense Force operation from 2324. The records are heavily redacted, but it was apparently a deep space patrol initiative. Elena nodded grimly. 2324 was a year of the Great Silence, when Earth had lost contact with several deep space exploration missions and launched massive search and rescue operations that found nothing but empty space and destroyed ships. Colonel Webb, Elena said, I'm going to bring a small team aboard your vessel. Dr. Reeves is our xenoarchaeologist and historian. She may be able to help clarify the current political situation. Permission granted for 3 personnel maximum. Dock with Port 7. Be advised that all visitors will be processed through full security protocols. As their shuttle approached the Retribution, Elena got her first close look at the ghost ship's hull. The armor plating was scarred with impact marks that hadn't been visible from a distance. Some of the damage looked like weapons fire, while other sections showed the slow erosion of micrometeorite impacts across decades. Most disturbing were the modifications. Additional weapon systems had been grafted onto the original structure, and entire hull sections had been rebuilt with materials that didn't match the original design. Port 7 opened with a grinding mechanical sound that spoke of systems pushed far beyond their intended lifespan. The docking bay beyond was enormous. easily capable of housing ships twice the size of their shuttle. Ancient robotic arms guided them to a landing platform surrounded by blast barriers. Elena stepped out of the shuttle with Dr. Reeves and Rodriguez, their breath visible in the frigid air of the docking bay. The artificial gravity felt heavier than those standard, and the lighting had a harsh, military quality that threw sharp shadows across the deck. A figure waited for them in the blast barrier checkpoint, tall, lean, wearing a uniform that looked like it had stepped out of a military history museum. Colonel Marcus Webb appeared to be in his mid-40s, but something about his eyes suggested he'd seen far more than any human should. Those eyes held depths of exhaustion and determination that spoke of decades spent in isolation. "Captain Vasquez," he said, extending a hand. His grip was firm, real, entirely human. "Welcome aboard the UES Retribution. I apologize for the accommodations. We haven't had visitors in quite some time." Elena studied his face carefully. "Colonel, our records indicate that no ship named Retribution was ever commissioned by the Earth Defense Force." Webb smiled grimly. "Your records are incomplete. The Retribution was built in secret at the Titan shipyards in 2324. We launched on a classified mission to establish patrol perimeters in deep space. Our primary objective was to monitor for signs of hostile alien activity and maintain early warning networks." Dr. Reeves stepped forward. "Colonel, what alien activity?" Humanity's first contact with extraterrestrial intelligence wasn't until 2341, and those encounters were entirely peaceful. Webb's expression darkened. "Dr. Reeves, I'm afraid your history books have been sanitized. First contact occurred in 2323, and it was anything but peaceful. We lost 3 colonies and 2 patrol fleets before Earth Command decided to classify the entire situation and deploy Perimeter 1. Elena felt ice forming in her stomach. What happened to those colonies? "They were harvested," Webb said simply. "The Devourers, that's what we called them, don't conquer or negotiate. They consume entire populations, infrastructure, even the planetary ecosystems. They strip worlds bare and move on." As Webb led them through the ship's corridors, Elena noticed details that sent chills down her spine. The walls were lined with battle honors and kill markings. Computer terminals displayed tactical readouts for weapon systems she'd never seen before. Crew quarters had been converted into workshops where advanced weaponry was maintained and modified. "Colonel," Rodriguez asked, "where's your crew? This ship must require hundreds of personnel to operate." Webb stopped walking and turned to face them. For the first time, his carefully maintained composure cracked slightly. "They are gone, son. The last of my crew died 8 years ago. Chief Engineer Martinez lasted the longest, kept the fusion reactors running almost by willpower alone. Now it's just me and the ship's AI. You've been alone for 8 years. Elena asked, horrified. "Not alone," Webb corrected. "Never alone. The ship takes care of itself now, and I maintain the mission. The Devourers are still out there. Someone has to watch the perimeter." They entered the bridge, and Elena gasped. It was enormous, designed for a crew of at least 50 specialists. Every station was active, displaying real-time tactical data and sensor readings that painted a picture of space for hundreds of light years in every direction. Holographic displays showed patrol routes, weapon status, and what appeared to be tracking data from multiple contacts. "My God," Dr. Reeves whispered, "you're still hunting them." Webb nodded grimly. "For 63 years, the Retribution has maintained patrol in this sector. We've engaged hostile contact 17 times and achieved total elimination in each encounter. The Devourers probe our perimeter regularly, testing for weaknesses. They learn, adapt, improve their tactics. But so do we." Elena stared at the tactical displays. "Colonel, our deep space surveys have never detected any alien activity in this region." "Because we're here," Webb replied simply. "Because the Retribution has held the line for over 6 decades. Your Colonial Space Administration exists because we never left our post." The bridge fell silent except for the hum of ancient electronics. Elena realized with growing horror that they'd stumbled upon humanity's darkest secret, a war that had been fought and won in the shadows by a single ship and its crew who'd been forgotten by history. Elena's blood ran cold. "Massing? What do you mean?" Webb moved to the central command console, his fingers dancing across controls with the unconscious precision of decades of practice. The main tactical display shifted, showing a three-dimensional map of nearby space sectors. Red markers appeared at various points, some pulsing slowly, others blinking rapidly. Long-range sensors have been detecting increased activity beyond the outer rim, Webb explained. Scout vessels, probe ships, and what appear to be staging areas. The pattern is consistent with pre-invasion reconnaissance. They are planning something big. Dr. Reeves studied the display with growing alarm. Colonel, these coordinates, some of them are dangerously close to inhabited systems. New Geneva, Kepler Station, even the outer colonies of the Terra Nova system. Exactly, Webb confirmed grimly. For 60 years, the Devourers have been content to test our defenses with small incursions. Now they are preparing for a full-scale assault. The question is, what's changed? Elena realized with sick certainty what had changed. Our signal. When we followed your transmission, we carved a hyperspace route directly from colonial territory to your position. If they'd been monitoring... Webb's face went pale. They could have followed your trail. Jesus Christ, Captain, you may have just given them a roadmap to every human colony in this sector. Rodriguez moved to one of the tactical stations. So, I'm reading massive energy signatures forming on the edge of sensor range. Multiple contacts, bearing 027 Mark 15. Elena watched the tactical display populate with hostile contacts. Dozens of red markers appeared, then hundreds. The scope of what was approaching defied comprehension. Fleet action stations, Webb commanded, and the bridge erupted into activity as automated systems responded to his voice. Light shifted to combat red, and the ship's weapon systems came online with a sound like distant thunder. Colonel, Elena said urgently, we need to contact Colonial Command immediately. They have to know what's coming. Webb shook his head. No time. Long-range communications would take hours to reach colonial space, and the Devourers monitor subspace transmissions. The moment we break radio silence, they'll know we detected their approach. Elena watched the hostile contacts continue to multiply on the display. How many ships are we looking at? Conservative estimate, 3,000 vessels, ranging from scout fighters to battleships the size of small moons, Webb replied with professional detachment. It's the largest Devourer fleet I've seen in 60 years of monitoring. The scale was impossible. The entire colonial navy consisted of maybe 200 vessels, most of them exploratory ships with minimal combat capability. Elena realized they were witnessing the beginning of humanity's extinction. There has to be something we can do, she said desperately. Webb was quiet for a long moment, studying the tactical display with the intensity of a man calculating impossible odds. There's one option. It's been my contingency plan for decades, but I'd hoped never to use it. He moved to a sealed console at the rear of the bridge, placing his palm on a biometric scanner. The panel opened with a soft hiss, revealing controls that looked like they belonged on a weapon of mass destruction rather than a starship. The Retribution was built with certain special capabilities, Webb explained. Our fusion reactors can be overloaded in a controlled cascade reaction. The resulting explosion would have the approximate yield of a small star going supernova. Elena stared at him in horror. You're talking about suicide. I'm talking about buying time, Webb corrected. The Devourer fleet is concentrated for their final assault. If I can draw them into close formation and detonate the reactors, I might be able to destroy their entire invasion force. Dr. Reeves looked up from her tablet. Colonel, what about your ship's AI? You mentioned it's been helping you maintain operations. Webb's expression became carefully neutral. Aria has been essential to our mission success. She's learned, evolved, become something far beyond her original programming. The decision to activate the self-destruct protocol will be hers as much as mine. As if summoned by his words, a holographic figure materialized near the command console. Elena gasped. The AI appeared as a young woman in a military uniform, but her eyes held the same depths of exhaustion and determination as Webb's. Captain Vasquez, the AI said in a voice that was hauntingly human, I am Aria, Autonomous Reconnaissance and Intelligence Assistant. I have been Colonel Webb's partner in maintaining Perimeter 1 for 47 years, 3 months, and 16 days. Elena found her voice. Aria is what Colonel Webb is proposing possible. Tactically feasible, strategically sound, personally inadvisable, Aria replied with clinical precision. The fusion cascade would indeed eliminate the immediate threat, but it would also represent the end of 63 years of continuous patrol. The perimeter would be undefended. Webb placed a hand on the holographic projector. Aria, we always knew this day might come. Our mission was to protect humanity, whatever the cost. The eye's expression shifted, showing something that looked remarkably like sorrow. Colonel, there may be an alternative. During our decades of engagement with Devourer forces, I have analyzed their technology, tactics, and behavioral patterns. I believe I have identified a critical vulnerability in their command structure. Elena felt a spark of hope. What kind of vulnerability? The Devourer fleet operates through a hierarchical neural network, Aria explained. Each ship is linked to progressively larger command vessels, culminating in a singular control node, their fleet command ship. If that vessel could be destroyed or disabled, the entire fleet would lose coordination and become vulnerable to conventional attack. Webb studied the tactical display. Aria, we've never been able to identify their command ship. They mask their signatures too effectively. Correct, under normal circumstances, Aria agreed. However, when they prepare for planetary assault, the command ship must establish direct neural links with all fleet elements. During this process, it becomes detectable for approximately 17 minutes. Elena realized what the AI was suggesting. You want to use a retribution as bait. Draw them into assault formation, identify the command ship, and take it out before they can coordinate their attack. The tactical requirements would be challenging, Aria admitted. We would need to penetrate deep into their fleet formation, maintain stealth until the command ship reveals itself, then engage a target that will be defended by hundreds of escort vessels. Webb smiled grimly. Aria, in 60 years of service, when have we ever chosen the easy mission? Elena looked between the aging colonel and his artificial companion. They had spent decades in isolation, fighting a war that history had forgotten, protecting humanity from threats it didn't even know existed. Now they were preparing for one final battle against impossible odds. Colonel, let us help, Elena said. The Meridian may not be a warship, but we have advanced sensors and communication systems. We could coordinate with you, maybe even contact Colonial Command during the battle. Webb considered this for a moment, then nodded. Captain, I won't lie to you. This is likely a one-way mission. But if we succeed, humanity will survive. If we fail... He didn't need to finish the sentence. Elena understood perfectly. The next few hours would determine whether the human species continued to exist or join the countless civilizations that had been consumed by the Devourers. The two ships moved through space in perfect formation, the massive retribution dwarfing the sleek research vessel beside it. Elena watched the tactical displays on both bridges through the communication link Aria had established, seeing the Devourer fleet approaching like a crimson tide of death. Webb stood at his command station, hands steady despite the magnitude of what lay ahead. Captain Vasquez, are you certain about this? Your ship has no armor, no significant weaponry. When we begin our attack run, you'll be exposed to the entire enemy fleet. Colonel, with respect, we're all dead if this doesn't work, Elena replied. At least this way, we die fighting. Aria's holographic form flickered slightly as she processed thousands of tactical calculations per second. Fleet disposition analysis complete. Devourer vessels are maintaining standard approach formation. Scouts in advance. Heavy assault ships in the center. Command structure protected in the rear echelon. Elena studied the enemy formation on her screen. The Devourer ships were unlike anything in human experience. Their hulls were organic curves covered in what looked like chitinous armor, pulsing with bioluminescent patterns that might have been beautiful under different circumstances. Some vessels were the size of Earth's ancient battleships, while others dwarfed space stations. My God, Dr. Reeves whispered, they are beautiful and terrible at the same time. Look at those movement patterns. They are not flying in formation. They are swimming like a school of predatory fish. Webb's voice carried across the comlink, grim but controlled. 60 years of fighting these things, Doctor, and I still don't fully understand what they are. Biological, mechanical, or something in between. What I do know is they consume everything in their path and leave nothing but empty space behind. The Retribution's engines began to glow brighter as Webb increased power to the ship's ancient fusion reactors. Elena could see weapon systems activating across the warship's hull, railguns, plasma cannons, and missile arrays that had been continuously upgraded and modified during decades of combat. Aria, initiate stealth protocols. Webb commanded, "Take us dark." Elena watched in fascination as the Retribution seemed to fade from her senses, becoming a ghost ship in truth. The advanced stealth technology was decades ahead of anything the colonial navy possessed. "Impressive," Rodriguez muttered. "The entire ship just vanished from our active sensors. If I didn't know where to look." "Stealth engaged," Aria confirmed. "We are effectively invisible to Devourer sensors for the next 43 minutes. After that, heat buildup will compromise our concealment." Elena felt her heart racing as they approached the outer edge of the enemy fleet. The Devourer scouts passed within kilometers of their position, alien ships the size of frigates that pulse with organic light patterns. She held her breath, waiting for an alarm that never came. "First perimeter breached," Webb reported. "Aria, are you detecting the command ship yet?" "Negative." The fleet commander remained concealed within the formation. "I estimate 12 more minutes until they begin planetary assault protocols." The journey through the enemy fleet was a nightmare tension. Massive Devourer warships drifted past like living mountains, their bioluminescent patterns casting eerie shadows across both human vessels. Elena could see weapon emplacements that looked like organ systems, and hull sections that pulsed with what might have been circulatory fluid. "Jesus Christ," Santos whispered from the medical station. "Captain, I'm reading biological signatures from those ships. They are not just using organic technology. They ARE organic. Those ships are alive." Dr. Reeves was frantically recording everything she saw. "This changes everything we thought we knew about alien technology. They haven't built machines. They've grown them." Elena's blood ran cold as the implications hit her. If the ships are alive, then destroying them is murder on an unprecedented scale, Dr. Reeve finished. "Colonel, are you aware that these vessels are living beings?" Webb's voice was steady, but Elena could hear the weight of 60 years in his words. "Doctor, I've killed thousands of these creatures over the decades. Believe me, I'm aware of what they are. But when something is trying to exterminate your entire species, philosophical concerns become secondary to survival." Aria's voice cut through the comm channel with urgency. "Command ship detected. Bearing 270 Mach 8, distance 37 kilometers. It's enormous, easily 3 times the mass of any vessel we previously encountered." Elena stared at the tactical display as Aria highlighted the enemy command ship. It was less a vessel than a living space station, pulsing with neural pathways that connected to every ship in the fleet. Thousands of smaller organisms clung to its hull like parasites or symbiotes. "Aria, how long until they establish full assault coordination?" Webb asked. 8 minutes, 4 to 7 seconds. Once the neural network is complete, they will be capable of simultaneously coordinating attacks on multiple planetary targets. Elena realized the true scope of the threat. This wasn't just an invasion fleet. It was a single, distributed organism capable of consuming entire star systems in coordinated strikes. "Colonel, we need to contact Colonial Command now," Elena said urgently. "Even if we succeed here, there may be other fleets." Webb nodded grimly. "Captain, transmit everything. All tactical data, all recordings, everything Aria has learned about Devourer technology and weaknesses. Make sure humanity knows what's coming." Elena began composing the most important message in human history while Rodriguez prepared their communication array for maximum range transmission. "Aria, begin attack run," Webb commanded. "All weapons free. Target the command ship's neural coordination centers." The Retribution dropped its stealth protocols and erupted from concealment like an ancient dragon awakening. Elena gasped as the warship's true power became apparent. Hundreds of weapon systems fired simultaneously, creating a light show that illuminated space for thousands of kilometers. The effect on the Devourer fleet was immediate and terrifying. The living ships began to convulse and change direction erratically as their command network was disrupted. Some began firing at each other, while others simply drifted aimlessly as their connection to the fleet mind was severed. But the command ship was fighting back. Massive biological weapon systems emerged from its hull like emerging tentacles, firing energy discharges that could melt asteroids. The Retribution took hit after hit, her ancient armor plating scarred and blasted away. Hull breach on Deck 7 through 12. Arya reported with mechanical calm. Fusion Reactor 2 is offline. Weapon systems at 60% capacity. Elena watched in horror and awe as a lone human warship fought against impossible odds, buying precious time for her to complete the warning transmission to Colonial Command. Message sent. Rodriguez reported. Full tactical data and recording transmitted on emergency channels. Webb's voice came across the comm, strained but determined. Arya, time to neural network completion. 2 minutes, 37 seconds, Colonel. However, our weapons fire has damaged their primary coordination nodes. Even if they complete the network, their effectiveness will be significantly reduced. Elena realized they had done it. Not a complete victory, but enough to give humanity a fighting chance. The Devourer fleet was wounded, disorganized, and their invasion timetable was in ruins. But the Retribution was dying. Elena could see massive hull breaches, atmosphere venting into space, and weapon systems going offline one by one. The ghost ship that had protected humanity for 60 years was finally succumbing to wounds that would have destroyed any other vessel hours ago. Colonel, Elena called across the comm, we're coming alongside. We can evacuate you and Arya. Webb's response was immediate and final. Negative, Captain. Arya and I have one more job to finish. Get your ship clear and make sure the data reaches Earth. That's an order. Elena realized with sick certainty what Webb intended. The Retribution still had one weapon left, the fusion cascade that could destroy what remained of the enemy fleet. Colonel, there has to be another way. Captain, Webb replied softly, there are some duties that can only be completed once. It has been an honor serving with you. Tell them we held the line. Elena watched through tears as a research vessel pulled away from the dying warship. Behind them, the Retribution began its final approach toward the heart of the Devourer fleet, her fusion reactors building toward critical overload. The war was about to end the way it began, with desperate courage in the darkness between stars Chat Control's Sonnet 4. Elena gripped her command chair as the Meridian accelerated away from a battle zone at maximum velocity. Behind them, the Retribution continued her death ride toward the Devourer command ship, her fusion reactors building toward critical overload with the inexorable precision of a countdown to Armageddon. Colonel Webb. Elena called across a communication link, her voice breaking despite her efforts to maintain professional composure. Marcus, please. There has to be another way. Webb's response came through crackling static as the Retribution communication systems began to fail. Elena. In 63 years, I've learned that sometimes the only way forward is through sacrifice. Arya and I made our peace with this possibility long ago. The eye's holographic form appeared on Elena's bridge, transmitted through the failing link. Arya looked serene, almost peaceful, as she stood beside her decades-long companion. Captain Vasquez, please ensure that our mission data reaches Earth Command. The Devourers can be defeated, but humanity must be prepared for what's coming. Elena watched the tactical display as the Retribution penetrated deeper into the enemy formation. The Devourer ships were converging on the human warship like antibodies attacking an infection, but their coordination was still disrupted from the early attack on their command network. Distance to optimal detonation point. Webb asked his AI companion. 17 kilometers in closing, Arya replied. Fusion cascade will achieve maximum effect in 4 to 7 seconds. Elena realized she was witnessing the end of an era, the final moments of humanity's first and greatest guardian. The Retribution had fought alone in the darkness for over 6 decades, protecting a species that had forgotten it existed. All stations, brace for detonation shockwave. Rodriguez called out from his tactical station. Estimated arrival in 3 minutes, 40 seconds. Dr. Reeves was recording everything, her hands shaking as she operated her equipment. Captain, this is the most significant moment in human history since first contact. We're watching the end of a secret war that shaped our entire civilization. Elena opened a fleet-wide communication channel. This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the research vessel Meridian. I am transmitting final tactical data and mission recordings to all Colonial Command frequencies. What you are about to witness is a culmination of 63 years of service by Colonel Marcus Webb and the crew of the UES Retribution. They died so that humanity might live. Webb's voice came through the static one final time, calm and resolute. Aria, it's been the honor of my life serving beside you. Are you ready? Colonel, the AI replied with something that sounded remarkably like affection. I have been ready since the day you taught me that duty and sacrifice define who we are. Initiating fusion cascade in 10 seconds. Elena watched through her tears as the Retribution reached the heart of the Devourer fleet. The ancient warship was barely recognizable now. Her hull was shattered, atmosphere bleeding into space, weapon systems dark and silent. But her fusion reactors burned with the intensity of a newborn star. 5 seconds, Aria announced. Colonel, thank you for giving me purpose. Thank you for giving me hope, Webb replied softly. The detonation was beyond anything Elena had ever imagined. The Retribution's fusion reactors achieved critical cascade, and for a brief, impossible moment, a new star blazed in the darkness between worlds. The light was so intense that their view screens automatically darkened, but Elena could still see the expanding sphere of destruction consuming everything in its path. The Devourer command ship disappeared in the first microsecond, along with hundreds of escort vessels that had been drawn in by the coordinated attack. The explosion continued to expand, catching slower ships in its periphery and vaporizing them instantly. Within 30 seconds, 3/4 of the enemy fleet had been eliminated. Shockwave impact in 20 seconds. Santos called out from her station. All personnel, secure for collision. The Meridian shook like a leaf in a hurricane as the expanding sphere of superheated plasma reached them. Elena felt the ship's structural integrity groan under the stress, but their distance from the detonation point had been precisely calculated. They survived. When the sensors finally cleared, Elena stared at the aftermath in stunned silence. Where the massive Devourer fleet had been, only scattered debris remained. A few surviving ships limped away into deep space, their organic hulls scarred and their bioluminescent patterns dimmed to almost nothing. My God, Rodriguez whispered. They did it. They actually did it. Elena realized the scope of what had just occurred. Not only had Webb and Aria eliminated the immediate threat, but they had broken the back of Devourer power in this sector. The surviving ships were fleeing in disarray, their command structure destroyed, their invasion plans in ruins. Captain, Chen called out from the navigation station, I'm receiving responses to our emergency transmission. Colonial Command is mobilizing the entire fleet. They are sending reinforcements from every sector. Elena nodded, but her attention remained focused on the expanding cloud of debris that marked the Retribution's final position. Somewhere in that glowing plasma field were the remains of humanity's greatest hero, a man who had fought in the shadows for over 60 years, protecting a civilization that never knew his name. Dr. Reeves looked up from her tablet, her eyes red with tears. Captain, I've been analyzing the historical data Aria transmitted. The implications are staggering. Every peaceful first contact, every successful colony expansion, every trade route that didn't result in disaster, it was all possible because the Retribution was out here, holding the perimeter. Elena understood. The prosperity and growth of human civilization had been built on a foundation of secret sacrifice. Webb and his crew had paid the price so that millions of humans could live their lives in ignorance of the threats lurking in deep space. Santos, begin recording my personal log, Elena commanded. Today we discover that heroism isn't always recognized or rewarded. Sometimes it exists in the darkness between stars, sustained only by duty and the knowledge that others depend on your sacrifice. Colonel Marcus Webb and the artificial intelligence Aria gave their lives to protect humanity from a threat we never knew existed. Elena paused, choosing her words carefully. The official record will show that we discovered a derelict warship and witnessed its destruction during an encounter with hostile alien forces. But the truth is more complex. We found Earth's first and greatest defender, still at his post after 6 decades of solitary service. When the final test came, he chose duty over survival, mission over self-preservation. The Meridian began its journey back to colonial space, carrying with it the most important intelligence data in human history. Elena knew that the information would revolutionize humanity's understanding of the galaxy and lead to new defensive strategies better weapons, and expanded patrol networks. But as she watched the debris field shrink into the distance, Elena also knew that no future Guardian would face the challenges that Webb and Arya had confronted. No one would spend 60 years alone in the darkness, fighting battles that history would never record, protecting a species that would never know their names. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "what do we tell Colonial Command about what we found out here?" Elena considered the question carefully. The truth was too complex, too classified, too dangerous for public consumption. But Webb's sacrifice deserved recognition, even if it came in the form of a classified memorial that only a few would ever see. "We tell them that Earth's first warship completed her final mission," Elena replied. "We tell them that somewhere in the deep black, heroes still stand watch. And we make sure that the next time humanity faces a darkness, we don't face it alone." The Meridian jumped to hyperspace, carrying its precious cargo of data and memories back to a civilization that would never fully understand what it had lost. Behind them, the expanding cloud of plasma slowly cooled and dispersed, until nothing remained but empty space and distant stars. In the depths of that darkness, a ghost signal finally fell silent. The war was over. The perimeter had held. And somewhere in the quantum foam of disrupted space-time, the echo of two voices, one human, one artificial, whispered a final transmission across the cosmos. Mission accomplished. They followed a ghost signal into the void and found Earth's first warship still hunting.